Given your experience, what makes a successful entrepreneur in terms of mindset, decision-making, taking risks, and everything, the whole package?
So entrepreneurs, in my view, are all in. What that means is when they focus on something, they go all in with their mind, with their body, with everybody around them. So what does that mean? It's 24/7. It's 7 days a week, 6.5 with a bit of rest. It's attracting everybody around you towards that mission. So it would be, for example, I want to deliver X to a customer. I will make sure the team is around me driving towards it. My friends and family are driving towards it. My entire ecosystem around me is working towards that. So you bring leadership skills, you bring execution skills, you bring motivational skills, you bring a drive, a passion towards it, and a lot of stamina. This is not something that can be done without stamina. A typical entrepreneurial journey has 2 phases, and within those 2 phases, there's lots of, let's say, ups and downs. Phase 1, which I call 0 to 1, and phase 2, which I call 1 to 100. So the 0 to 1 typically takes 10 years. 10 years. This is when you are a hustler. As an entrepreneur, you're very good at hustling. You figure a way to make the product work. You figure a way to build customers. You figure a way to attract employees. You figure a way to attract funding for your startup. You figure a way to adapt the product to the needs of the customer. And all of that is hustle, hustle, hustle. At some point, year 10, now obviously year 10 is it can be year 6 for some people, can be year 3 for some people. But at year 10, you hit what's called the hustle limit, which means you've done a really good job. Business is flourishing, customers are flourishing, but it cannot be a hustle. You cannot deliver everything yourself. You have to corporatize quite heavily. Now the governance and the rules and the systems and the processes come in, and the big company kind of feel comes in, and you gotta allow a lot more leverage from the people around. So that's phase 2, the 1 to 100. Different kinds of entrepreneurs.
If you didn't fail at the phase 1,
exactly.
Most of them, they fail in the first, second year.
100%. So I would say you hit the wall 100 times along the way. And first is, can you pick yourself from the wall? When you hit it, it's a bit like a Formula 1 driver. You hit it, you get up, and you try to fix the car, and you move on. And you have the mechanics around you, and you have the team around you to help you fix the car. But you also say, am I going the right route? Did I make a mistake? Do I learn from that mistake? Do I not? Do I focus on the right way? And do I have the funding? Is somebody paying for me to fix the car when I make mistakes? Because if you don't have the funding, it's not going to happen. And that funding comes if you have the charm, passion, and also you're chasing the right goals. So obviously the entrepreneur must be technically smart enough to understand, is this space moving, what I call, again, taking it like if you're surfing a big wave, you wait for the wave to come and then you surf it. Then you need to know how to surf it, but you also need to know that you're in the right place where the big waves are coming. If you're just waiting in a flat place and there are no waves, you got nothing to surf. Or if you miss the wave, is there next one coming? Or if you crash on that one, can you pick yourself up, put on the new shoes and get back on them? So
it looks harsh.
It is harsh.
So it's not for everyone, because I think in our generation and younger generation, we are all dreaming about being in the boss of me, like building our own business and everything. But it seems hard.
It is. It's rewarding. It's rewarding along the journey. It rewards every time you have a win. It can be a small win, like your first customer or the first time the product came out of the factory. Those are small wins. But those wins result, you feel so good about it. It's better than being in a company. It's like, it's a result. It's a real result. It's like, when a kid takes his first step or her first step, it's that kind of feeling. So those things keep the motivation up. And it's not just the entrepreneur who feels it, it's the entire team around him or her. So it's not for everyone. But what's happened perhaps along the way is it's become easier to be an entrepreneur, but it's also become more difficult.
How easier?
So let's take the UAE or the region as an example. 10 years ago, if I put a spectrum of entrepreneurship was taboo to what you just said, entrepreneurship is like sexy. it used to be on the left, and now it's on the right. What happened along the way? Why was it on the left? Was because a job is seen as safer, a job is seen as you're smart and successful, and an entrepreneur is seen as somebody who couldn't get a job in those days. Now it's seen the other way around. Entrepreneur is a risk taker who everybody should celebrate, etc. So what happened along the way? People started to celebrate. The media came in and supported, number one. Number two, some success stories came out. Not only the Kareems, but quite a few success stories that created a lot of excitement around the topic. Number three, the difficult bits, they call it the roadblocks. It could be setting up a company, it could be the legal structure, it could be opening a bank account, it could be
the ecosystem.
Correct.
Yeah.
The ecosystem, the talent, etc., which was difficult 10 years ago, is so much easier now. You can open a bank account within minutes. You can get support, you can get talent in the UAE or in the region, especially in the last 2 years. That is substantially better than what you could get 5-6 years ago. So all of these, you can also be hybrid. You don't have to have talent sitting in your office. You can do it offline. You can do it multi-country. So these opportunities have changed the game. And to continue that, friends and family came into this picture. You didn't have accelerators and incubators that showed you how to write the playbook. Now the playbook can be written, and there's examples and there's case studies, and somebody can coach you along the way. But for investors like me, that's a problem, because in the past, when somebody is good, it's so easy to pick up somebody who's good. Now you have to find out, is it authentic or it's just dress up? Is it like, somebody who's just media trained and is able to package nicely, or is there depth behind it? So you have to find the authenticity behind the entrepreneur, and you have to make sure that this is feasible.
How you make difference or distinguish between a good idea, crazy idea, bad idea, whatever. Because it could be shocking sometimes, but it might work.
Yeah, that's another thing about entrepreneurs. They're disruptive, and usually what they explain, most people would say that's impossible, doesn't make sense, and they make it possible. That's not just about the idea, but the ability to execute. How can investors or customers consider that and say, is that feasible or not? It goes back to the big wave discussion. So if I go back, venture capital came in about 1960s, 70s. That was when the chips, the chips that make computers and etc. phones, it was all about the chip development that allowed compute to become feasible and compute to become affordable at the individual level. Then what happened the next phase? So this is where VCs entered and said, okay, who's building the chips? The next phase was when software came and said, okay, now we have compute power. Let's build applications that allow people to use that compute power in their jobs, in their everyday work. So then you got like software businesses forming, and then the investments was which is the best coming software business that will be faster. For example, Microsoft, when Microsoft was young. Then came effectively the Amazons and Facebooks, etc., the social side of it that says, okay, not only is it good for businesses, it's also good for consumers. So that came the B2C side. But along that way, not everybody could still afford to build or get software, etc. The affordability came in when cloud came in. So that when cloud came in, it meant you don't have to rent a huge server, you don't have to rent a large space, you can do it on the cloud, you don't have to have it on your premise, you can do it software. So the investments went from chips to software to cloud. And what's coming in now? It's AI. So AI is effectively driving that whole era towards the next leap. So investments are forming along the way.
So how AI is changing everything? How do you see it in the future? What makes like the business makes more sense, or the ones that doesn't?
Yeah. In everything we do, there's a lot of tasks we do which are mundane, meaning there's a lot of processes along the way. Even when you're driving a car, the hardest bits are the starting, the ending, and the traffic points. In between, it's fairly straightforward. AI comes in to take what is the straightforward, mundane, potentially not interesting for an employee and takes over that and improves the productivity. So it speeds up what used to be not fun as well as
Boring jobs.
boring, number one, but also a lot of processes where it had to go from one bit to another bit to another bit. So now AI can take over that and remove those hurdles. That makes it more efficient. We'll get later into it. Maybe I'll explain later how that also helps in climate tech. But so one it does that. Two, it takes what is very complex, sophisticated mathematics, which is hard to compute in our head or compute on a single laptop, etc. So it allows for continuous learning and continuous compute to basically do those complex tasks. So which dumbs us down a bit. So it takes the mundane part, but it also does the clever part. So sometimes you think, okay, is it taking too much of the cleverness? So that's the bad side of it. I know you don't want our kids to grow up saying, well, I don't need to learn it because AI will just do it for me. So hence, I don't need to learn it. So those are the bad elements.
But now, if I am an entrepreneur or I want to start my own business in the area of AI, where should I look? What are the fields? Because sometimes before this, it was like cryptocurrency, it was metaverse. There's this hypes and this shiny fields, like a trend. Is AI a trend, or is it gonna stick with us?
No, so I think AI is an infrastructure play. So as I said, it was chips, it was software, it was cloud, it's AI. These are big infra plays. These are not specific, individual applications. So these will stay. These will stay for 40, 50 years. These create a complete change in the way we work. It's not a small trend like a fintech trend or a crypto trend or a Web3 trend. Now this is a much bigger technology play, which completely disrupts how we do business. So when I was
To be prepared.
You have to be prepared.
How?
How do we prepare? One, I think everybody has to dabble in it. Whether you are an 18-year-old or an 80-year-old, whether you're a business person or you're just a stay-at-home or you're a sports person, whatever, you have to play with it. You have to test it. And it might be just for your own use cases. It might be for, I don't know, cooking. It might be for enhancing the way you decide your morning routine. It might even be for a sportsman enhancing their performance. For example, you see people wearing the Aura ring or you see people wearing a watch, etc. The best athletes are trying to get marginal improvements, like, a 0.1 second or a point, whatever it may be. Those marginal improvements is a difference between coming fourth and going on the medal stand. So AI is a way of leveraging, optimizing what you're doing. To say, have I worked out too much? Have I worked out too little? Have I slept too much? Have I slept too little? Do I need to change what I'm doing? So it's marginally changing everything you do, and you're getting information. You're getting a lot more accurate information to be able to adapt yourself. So one, no matter what you do, whether you're technology driven or not, using AI to enhance what you do and what you like is one thing I would say. And once you do that, you got skin in the game, because then you say, oh, this is working. Oh, suddenly my golf is improving because I learned that my swing is wrong through this AI. It excites you and you want to learn more.
But this is for the long term as well, because there's a lot of studies and warnings that AI is going to take all over the jobs, millions and millions of jobs. So I don't know if this is going to be the same excitement, the same frame for businesses and for jobs. So this leads me to ask you about the future of jobs in work in general.
It's a very good question. Look, one of the hardest things in current jobs is not the actual job of, I have to deliver X. One of the hardest things is the social culture mixing, the politics that happens in a job. That's very hard. It's very hard to get right. It's very hard for people because this is where stress happens and mental issues happen. So how can we use AI to do the ordinary stuff, and we all upgrade the people in the companies, upgrade the way society works with each other, upgrade the mental wellness, upgrade the way we spend time with each other, spend time back with family or on our own mental and physical health, to ensure that we live much more positively rather than the stress of the day-to-day environment. So for me, that's the positive side of AI.
You think?
That's what we should do. That's
we should do. But I think the other day I was talking to another guest in this podcast, and he said we should be ready for the next level, the world without work or after work. I think I find it very difficult in my, I think, generation, millennials and older, to imagine our world without work. I think it's gonna lead like to mental health problems and more depression, more than being like enjoy it like positively. I don't know. I can't imagine a world without work.
I agree. We need to keep ourselves busy. So let me go back to the very first question about entrepreneurs. What entrepreneurs are really good at is execution. What they're really bad sometimes is when they're executing, they don't know. Sometimes they will take risks which are potentially unethical or morally the wrong side of the compass, or they might, it might be just a risk they don't get to understand. So you often need an oversight role, like a board, a chairman, or somebody who's mentoring them. Now the same thing happens with AI. AI has a bias because the algorithm that's written underneath AI is typically based on some data points. It's typically based on whoever programs that process. It has a bias by nature. So how do you sit on top and on top of the AI as people and govern what they do and oversee that it's going the right direction? It's a new role, it's a new requirement, it's a new time spent, which is part of work, which never existed. And it also goes back when the entrepreneur is running at full speed, hitting the wall, not seeing that the wall was coming because they weren't looking up. Now imagine if the AI could do that and the entrepreneur can look a bit higher up, be much more morally conscious of what they're up to, spend a lot more time overseeing the next step and the next step and the next step versus taking that step, because AI is helping them do the step whilst they think about the consequences of it. So to your point,
itself is making us ask a lot of questions about the AI morality and responsibility towards like human beings. Is it a threat? Is it not? So what's the motivation in general besides like getting more money? And also we have this general idea or stereotypes as the commons towards like entrepreneurs or millionaires or anyone who has a business, that they're going after greed, and it's something like bad, and we're looking at them as villains. But sometimes they give us like solutions, or maybe they're more responsible towards society in general.
I read AI as a single word: speed. It allows things to happen faster, good or bad. Okay, so now we have to tune that speed is going the right direction. So the good speed allows you to maybe make more money, or have more rest because you finish your work faster, or whatever it may be. Allows you to do more things. Can you ensure that you've got call it roadblocks if the car is speeding too fast, to prevent them crashing into something? Number one. Can you, at the end of the day, when they reach the goal, can you calm down, rest, deliver something? So the morality bit is all about how do you control the speed, how do you manage the direction, how do you create speed bumps that watches out for mistakes that may happen, watches out for some minority or even majority of the population being affected in a bad way. How do you monitor that? How do you manage that? So I think that's our role, and that won't go away. As a job, it's a different type of job. It's not what used to be. we're not running now. We're looking at what the running is delivering. And we're saying, okay, let's do it the right way. So that goes back to who's got access to the tools to run, who's got the Ferrari, and how do we make sure that the people who are handling the Ferrari have the right moral compass. I think this is quite important.
If you say somebody has to control the speed, how? And it can be. How can we make it?
How do we prevent it being a runaway train?
Yeah.
Right. That's and which might crash and kill a lot of people along the way. It's a very good question. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, but just like any high-speed sport, rules start coming in. Something happens. So again, going back to Formula One, we had all the previous incidents where people had fatal injuries. So several things happened. They became tight. The rules became tighter on what a car can and cannot do, what the grounds needs to have as protection. Also, the car manufacturers created products to strengthen, let's say, to reduce the impact of risk. You know, when there's a crash, you've got like the entire body protected, etc. So the participants in that AI game have to build protection mechanisms. The regulators, i.e. the governments, the professors, the universities, the global large corporates have to bring in protection mechanisms. Is there a single body out there that can control this? This goes back to your crypto question. Crypto had a DAO, right? I forget what DAO stood for, but effectively they were the governance of that particular crypto, and they would say what's allowed, what's not allowed, when should a Bitcoin have, when should it not have, what are the rules of the game, can you even change the rules of the game? So can you create such a AI body which is global, local, for particular industry verticals? Who runs that? I don't know the answer, but this is definitely something both from a political and a business perspective we should continue to drive for an answer, to put those barriers of speed.
Yeah. How to prepare? You mentioned like mentoring entrepreneurs and guiding them. How you guide them towards this future unknown?
Entrepreneurs, the best entrepreneurs need guidance. The very best. And typically you have three types of guidance. You have the gray-haired, call it wise man, wise woman, who have done it, who've just spent the time, and in whatever they've done in life, they have the experience to sit down and calm the entrepreneur into thinking multiple steps ahead and also balancing. So you have the wise person, then you have the technical person. But typically, when somebody builds something good, they also create a legacy. So when the dilemma is that there's always a next thing that's coming that's better. And how do you deal with your legacy so that the next one doesn't kill your legacy? So typically the technology mentors are driving towards the next step. That's the second one. The third one, I would almost say, I have a simple rule. I call it 20-40-60. What that means, the average customer in the world, the average population is 20 years old, in their 20s or younger. The manager or the executor or the CEO is typically in their 40s or 50s. So the customer is in their 20s or younger. The manager that makes the decisions is in their 40s. And then the board, the senior people that are governing all that are in the 60s. Mm-hmm. So you have a problem where the 60-year-olds are telling the 40-year-olds what a 20-year-old wants. So you've got a big issue with the 20-40-60. Nobody knows each other. So back to that third mentor. The third mentor is the youngest person in the room, the youngest customer, the one who is willing to take risks, the one who wants to adapt, the one who wants to disrupt, the one who's telling you, you can do it better. Don't settle for 1, settle for 0. Don't settle for 0.1. It has to be better, faster, more effective. So for me, those three mentors are key, each balancing each other out.
I think the third one is pushing you down. because they're tires. But because so many now, when I watch like podcasts or something like stories of success, there's always this trend of emotion-driven decision making or decisions in general. It looks like emotions aren't the enemy, but in my opinion, it should be like balanced, between logical and emotions. Don't you think? How you see it?
It's a tough one. So when you're in the middle of your day-to-day work, and especially entrepreneurs who are working 24/7 with very little sleep or very little college support, so those 10 years in that first phase, typically they're earning very little, they're eating very little, they're sleeping very little. Their bodies are thrashed, which means their minds are also hitting limits where emotions come out, and they come out extreme. They will cry, they will laugh, they will jump, they will shout, they will go. You need somebody, again, back to that mentoring or guidance, who's almost meditative, calming it all down. The one way I see, the way I look at it, if you're in a traffic jam and you're the one driving the car, you can get emotional about it. But if you put yourself in the car, but you just you pretend you're watching yourself and the traffic jam from the air, you'll suddenly calm down. Just suddenly relax and say, okay, there's nothing I can do about this. I'm going to have to wait till X, Y, and Z happens. I can't stress about it. It is what it is.
Easier said than done. No?
Exactly. That's the meditative play, right? And especially when you're in a stress situation and people are depending. A customer is calling you, where's my product? You promised it to me yesterday. This stuff happens. And learning how to sit down. Just this morning, for example, at Ian, I was on a call with one of my colleagues, and suddenly he had to say, I had to stop the call. He says, listen, gotta go calm a customer. He's very upset with us. So he took the customer away, gave him a coffee, says, okay, tell me your problems. Took only 5 minutes. But that coffee and sitting them down was enough to just calm the situation. Hey, I don't think AI is going to be able to do that for us. I think we need that human touch.
Place and human touch.
Yeah. So I do believe we need to balance.
But it's very difficult, I believe. And also, because I think Jeff Bezos said once that you have to keep always in the fresh eye. It's like using every single day as the first day, or treat it like this. You think this is feasible somehow, especially for entrepreneurs, to make, you said, like 24/7, and they need to set the role and to set the bar for others?
Yeah, I think the answer goes to data. So what happens, data is always coming back and giving you a response, giving you not a solution, but they are highlighting differences. So they say, going back to the watch, you slept 6 hours yesterday instead of 6.5 hours. Then you go back and say, what might have caused that? And you say, did I eat the wrong thing? Did I drink the wrong thing? Was there something in my head? So you start adapting. And entrepreneurs use that data to say, what happened to my sales today? Should I turn on my ad tech advertising more? Should I reduce it? Or even on a minute by minute basis, etc. Should I change my team or not? Is there something happening? So data is always coming in and giving you a new point to engage with. And so as long as the best entrepreneurs have access to that data, look at that data, respond, learn, adapt. The worst ones say, nope, I'm stubborn, I'm going to go and I'm going to attack. There's a balance. I mean, stubbornness is good, but learn from what happened in the past, learn from the data, and take that forward.
But if we take like Bezos himself or Elon Musk or Zuckerberg, are not easy to work with.
Yeah.
A very hard worker. And I think they believe somehow in karma in business. You know, how much you work and you put in, you get. So it's not for everyone, I believe. Because, for example, for me, and I think a lot of people in general, like, we're never going to be millionaires. We know this for sure. But I think this is a sad life, you know. We need to have this balance between life and work.
So you need to be happy. And happy doesn't mean money. Happy doesn't mean working hard. But happy doesn't also mean not just relaxing. So I think, first of all, for people can be millionaires without having to work 24/7. It's a question of how good you are at what you like to do, and do customers, are there people willing to pay for that? So, and one of the mistakes, by the way, most entrepreneurs made in the last, not 2022, but before 2022, was what they were really good at doing, they were giving it away. They were giving it away either too cheap or free, which was a big mistake. Even Jeff Bezos was giving it away for free. So for me, the leaders, the Elon Musks, etc., and Steve Jobs, they always push the limits. They push their teams to the limits. Some people can cope with it, some people learn from it, some people hate it. And some people love it and then they crash. I think there's a point in every life where you want to push your body to the limit, you want to push your mind to the limit. And you take that as experience and you move to the next phase. There's a point where that builds discipline, that builds character, that builds the ability to work under different environments. If you take a typical marathon runner, the hardest bit of the marathon is the if I divide it into 4 quarters, it's not the first quarter and it's not the last quarter, it's the middle ones, because this is where it's forever to finish. This is where your legs and your body is starting to feel, but mental, it's all mental. As you crack through the third quarter, and when you burst through that body and mental limit, the last quarter is like, it's, everything's coming out very positive. So what I'm saying is these leaders figure out how to break your body and rebend it. You figure out how that works. So back to your balance discussion, you might, I'll make this up, some people might enjoy watching a lot of TV, a lot of series. But at some point, that also breaks, right? And you say, okay, how do I keep it refreshed? How do I keep my love for watching this? How do I, if I'm a lot of artists, singers, at some point they take drugs or they take stuff and they hit their limits and they crash. So how do I keep my body going without using artificial substances to keep my stamina, to keep my strength, or to keep my mind evolving? So for me, that's what these extreme people are able to deliver. They are able to force you to your limit, to force you to your edge, and still survive, and still not look for an alternative which is bad for you. I'm not answering your question properly. You get where I'm coming. For me, I'm passionate about pushing the limits.
Pushing the limits, but I don't know. I find it very difficult because I think we live only once.
As an investor, I force people to push their limits. As an investor, that's what I want, because yes, I do want profit. Yes, I do. It might be profit, or it might be whatever the outcome is. It might be a climate outcome, it might be a social outcome, but I want the entrepreneur to deliver that. And I'm going to push them to their limit, of course, in a nice way, not in a bad way. But that's their purpose in life. Not everybody can be an entrepreneur, going back to your second question. And hence, if somebody prefers to be a follower versus a leader, that's okay. There's a role for both. But if you're going to be a leader, you have to be a leader. You have to push those limits.
Let me back to entrepreneurs here in the region, MENA region. You said that a lot has happened, developments, ecosystem and everything, but a lot of markets in the region are trying to build their own health ecosystem still yet.
Yes.
How to get to the next level where instead of focusing on fintech, e-commerce or cloning business models to the other level, next level, like vertical levels, innovation, like in Silicon Valley?
Going back to disruption, so entrepreneurs have 2 skills which are very important: technical skills and hustle skills. So technical skills tell them they can build something, product or technology or something better than others can. That's one. Or they're using the latest technology to build something. Hustle skills means they're able to convince everybody around them, be it employees, friends, be it customers, be it investors, be it partners, vendors, to work with them, to get them to engage. So these two elements are key to disrupt whatever you're doing. So sometimes the technology can be innovative. Sometimes the hustle can be a copy, but a way better copy because the hustler is better able to drive it. To have both is difficult. And sometimes that's why we say you need 2 or 3 co-founders, because one might be very strong on the nerdy side, one might be very strong on the motivation and hustle side, one might be very strong on the governance and packaging and organization side. So I don't think you will have always disruption on its own. I think what happens now with AI, that playbook of AI is opening up, that you take AI and you go vertical. You can go into climate and say, I want to change X, Y, Z within climate. Where I'm from, Kenya, even 15, 20 years ago, there was a technology that allowed, which was driven by M-Pesa, there was a technology that allowed the microclimate, meaning how much rain is there or not, how much rain forecasts are there, based on the seed technology, to say, should I plant these seeds now or not, number one. Number two, the seeds are insured, so if it doesn't rain, you go back to the place you bought the seeds and you say, hey, listen, can I get insurance because there was a drought in my microclimate, and you can get a refund, etc. So there's minor technology plays which can help in the climate world.
But how can we make sure that investments in general plays a big role in finding a solution to like green solutions or health environment?
That's a very good question. I think we're using technology to push the limits of 3 things: maths, physics, and chemistry. And these are the 3 things that allow us to figure out what's the next phase in climate, what's the renewable. So one, today when we use energy, a lot is going into waste. The same up, if you produce 100x of energy, probably 20 to 30 is wasted. It's leaked. So how can technology make sure that same energy, we're reducing the waste down to 0 or 1 or whatever? So first, that's one extreme, reduce waste. 2, we're using the science to figure out new ways of storing energy, of producing energy. It could be hydrogen, it could be
Carbon, I think.
Non-carbon related. It could be solar, it could be wind, etc. So we're using technology to optimize capturing energy, storing energy, and delivering energy to where it's necessary. So that's again technology driven. And third, we get the data points. We get to see the inputs and the outputs and say what was cause and effect. There were a lot of naysayers 3 years ago, 5 years ago. Even now, there's still people who say climate change is not real, or we shouldn't worry about it. But now we have data and proof to point what is causing it, what's the impact, and what should we stop or what should we grow to change that play. Because again, it goes back to data. Does planting more trees change it? Does reducing certain type of carbon reduce it, etc.? So now we have the data points to prove it and show it.
Data don't lie, but at the same time, there's another bad face of technology in terms of environment, in terms of e-waste or substances or natural substances, or even like greenhouse emissions, especially, for example, for the cryptocurrency mining. So how to solve this? Because
they're optimizing their profit versus...
Yeah.
Call it balanced profit versus ESG, call it what can we do which is better for the world versus just chase profit. And I think this is where everybody, it could be philanthropy, it could be politics, it could be leaders taking the first step. It could be stars, celebrities taking the first step. It shouldn't just be the young people, the Gretas, to come out and wave the flags and say green is important. I think everybody needs to play a role, and I think leaders have to play a role. And I'm glad that our region is a key participant and driver of this. I think it needs to be in everybody's lips. Today, I have a 18 and a 21-year-old. It's in their lips because that's how they think. But is it in my father's lips? Is it in my age group's lips? No. And how do we force that thinking? How do we force the belief when I'm about to eat, when I'm about to make a move? Am I doing the right thing? How does it become inbred in our way of thinking, in our education, in the way media plays it? I think that's a very key.
How to make like tech companies and corporations aware of this, because they're promoting solutions, green solution in terms of environment, but they are at the same time like participating in this pollution and the greenhouse emissions.
Well, I can take an extreme view here. Take Bitcoin mining or crypto mining, which is, as we know, energy killing. They should be taxed. I think we should be extreme about it. Why should they get away with a low-cost burn, which is very bad for the environment? Why shouldn't there be some regulatory conditions put on those to say, okay, if you want to burn this much, let's make sure there's a positive outcome. So tax it, find a way to regulate it. And obviously that's not for me to say. This is a more global discussion. So on one side there's a penalty. On the other side there's a carrot that says, if you are doing the right thing and you're producing good for the world, how do you get incentivized? How do the developing world or a farmer that plants an extra tree or whatever they do, or they make sure that their soil is regenerated, how do we incentivize a poor farmer who has zero access to media or to the world? How do we incentivize that? So I think balancing the punishments and the rewards and finding a way to regulate that.
So like there's always politics and this. Also, besides politics, there is a greed and looking into profits and returning to the stakeholders. How to make this balance between profits and morality and responsibility towards itself.
I bring that back to you guys as the media. I think it's the media's job to train everybody in the world to think with the right moral compass, to avoid one going too extreme, to help the world really find the bad actors and the good actors and find a way to balance that. And I think that's exactly where the media steps in.
But the media can talk to people, like common people. But how about the corporation and professionals and experts?
Media has power. Media has more power than. But I can't answer that. Difficult for me to answer politically what to do. But I believe it's in the agenda of my own CEO, my own board. We have, as E&, we have our targets. We've set, net zero targets. We believe in it. We're putting initiatives into play to ensure that happens. And then at the community level, at the bottom level, we're even going down to the employees at each level to say what actions are we going to take. It won't be easy to implement. It will cost, but it's the right thing to. And I think we're not the only company.
Yeah, sure. So if I want you to wrap it up, and I want your idea about how to make a difference.
So for those budding entrepreneurs out there, we're there to be your cheerleaders. We're going to support you. We as investors, we as large corporates that want to support innovation, we as media, we will cheer for you. So we're going to give you that support. 2, the direction in which the money will flow, because it's important, should flow towards the right climate-driven, ESG-driven, morally driven direction, and there should be people monitoring and driving that. So I'm not saying we're going to be an impact fund. I'm not saying everybody should be an impact fund. What I am saying is there should be visibility, transparency out there to say what good have you done and what bad have you done. And that transparency will make it easier for money to flow the right direction. That's the second thing. Third, let's harness AI. Let's harness AI to do the good things, and let's work together in doing that. This cannot be done without collaboration. Collaboration between companies, between investors, between countries, and between tough players. That's probably going to be very hard to do. This goes back to the hardest things to do in life is to get different egos, different political organizations, different countries to have the same agenda. But this is a matter of life and death of our planet. So we have no choice. We're going to go that way.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.